Some products that were built over 100 years ago still work today. Light bulbs that have burned for decades. Watches passed down through generations. Machines built before your grandparents were born. Still running exactly like they were meant to. And yet somehow it feels like the things we buy today barely survive a few years. You've probably felt it yourself. Phones slow down almost the moment you get used to them. Appliances fail sooner than expected. Electronics start acting strangely just outside the warranty. And when something finally does break, replacing it often feels easier than fixing it. Which raises a strange question. If companies clearly know how to make products last, why does it feel like so many things no longer do? And the strange part is, this didn't happen by accident. Because there was a time when making something last longer meant making something better. It was how companies proved they were superior. But eventually, products became so dependable that lasting too long started creating a problem. And once businesses realized that, the way products were designed began to change. Go back far enough, and durability was everything. If you made tools, you wanted them stronger. If you made machines, you wanted them tougher. And if you made household products, you wanted them to outlast everyone else. Because in the early days of manufacturing, people didn't buy things casually. They bought carefully, sometimes after saving for months. Owning something new wasn't just convenience, it was an investment. And when people spent money on something, they expected it to stay with them for years, sometimes for life. People didn't treat products like temporary purchases. They treated them like things meant to stay with them. Buying something new felt less like grabbing another item off a shelf, and more like bringing something into your life for the long term. Because of that, a company's reputation lived or died by one thing: whether its products held up. If something broke too soon, people remembered, and they stopped trusting the brand. But if your product lasted, that built loyalty. So companies competed by trying to build the best product possible, the strongest, the toughest, the most dependable. And for a long time, that strategy worked. As manufacturing improved, products became stronger, better built, and more reliable. For decades, companies kept winning by making things last longer, until businesses began discovering a problem no one expected. And that's when everything started to change. Because if you build something that lasts forever, people stop needing another one. And at first, that sounds like the perfect problem to have, until you realize what it actually means. Imagine spending years perfecting a product, making it more durable than ever before, only to realize your customers no longer need to come back. Not because they dislike what you made, not because they found something better, but because what you built refuses to wear out. And eventually, companies ran into a strange new problem. Their own success had created one. Everyone who needed one already had one. Which is great in theory, slightly less great if your business depends on selling more of them. A family might buy one refrigerator, one washing machine, one radio, and keep them for decades. But for a business trying to keep growing, one-time demand isn't enough. So after spending decades solving the problem of products breaking too quickly, companies suddenly faced the opposite question. What happens when products last too long? And that question would slowly reshape manufacturing forever. Once businesses realized durability could hurt demand, the way they thought about product design began to shift. And eventually, some companies stopped seeing durability as an advantage and started seeing it as a problem. One of the most famous examples came in the 1920s. By then, Light bulb manufacturers had become extremely good at making long-lasting bulbs. Some lasted thousands and thousands of hours, and engineers knew they could make them last even longer. But there was one problem. If light bulbs lasted too long, people stopped buying new ones. So in 1924, major manufacturers formed what became known as the Phoebus Cartel, a group partly created to standardize and reduce bulb lifespan. Not because longer-lasting bulbs were impossible, but because they already knew how to make them. It wasn't the only cause of this shift, but it reflected a growing realization spreading through manufacturing that lasting forever could become a business problem. Because from that point on, companies stopped asking, "How do we make this last as long as possible?" and started asking, "How long does this need to last?" And that single question changed everything, because those are two very different goals. One chases perfection, the other chases balance. Enough quality to satisfy the customer, but not so much that replacement becomes rare. Enough durability to build trust, but not so much that the customer disappears for decades. And once that mindset spread, the way products were built began to change. Many products stopped being designed for maximum lifespan. Instead, they were built around expected lifespan, with the assumption that eventually the customer would need another one. Sometimes that meant reducing durability. Other times it meant making products harder to repair. In some cases, it meant using materials that wore faster. And sometimes it meant changing designs and styles so often that people replaced things before they even broke. And eventually, another force began pushing that even further. As technology improved faster, products no longer had to break to be replaced. They just had to feel outdated. A radio might still work perfectly, but a newer one had better sound. A car might still run, but the newer model had more features. A phone might work perfectly fine, and still somehow feel ancient the second a newer one comes out. And once products started becoming obsolete before they wore out, building them to last forever mattered less and less. Because why design something to survive for decades if people will want the next version long before then? And over time, companies learned something important. You didn't always need a product to fail physically. You just needed people to feel ready for another one. And little by little, buying new became normal, because the more often people replaced products, the more the system rewarded replacement. And over time, that didn't just change the products we bought, it changed what we came to expect from them. Because once replacement becomes normal, even minor inconvenience starts feeling like failure. A phone battery getting weaker doesn't feel like wear anymore. It feels like it's time for a new phone. An appliance acting up doesn't feel like something to maintain. It feels like something going bad. Even something scratched or worn doesn't feel aged anymore. It feels outdated, because little by little, we stopped seeing maintenance as normal and started seeing inconvenience as a reason to replace. And once that mindset takes hold, you stop asking how long something can be preserved. You start asking how long until it needs to be replaced. We didn't stop building things to last because people forgot how. We stopped because lasting too long created a new problem. Because sometimes a system doesn't change when it fails. It changes when success creates a brand new problem. And that's how we stopped asking how long something could last and started deciding how long it should. So next time something breaks sooner than it should, or replacing it somehow feels easier than fixing it, you'll know that didn't happen by accident. And if there's another everyday system you've always wondered about, leave it below. Because odds are, there's a reason that became normal too.